remedy was taken to punish those who oversaw the plan of these resources. You are told they're spending lawsuits amounting to 5.7 billion. Your guess is good as mine. Who are the claimants? Who are the lawyers? And who are the brokers in this matter? And who are the judges going to be bribed so that they can pass judgment early enough so that when the billions come, their first charge, they are paid? Honorable Speaker, secondly, we are being told the Zakem case. All of us who have been here know the Zakem case. They know who authored the Zakem scandal. They are working scot-free in this country. None of them has ever been brought to book. We are selling, stripping public assets to pay crooks who are already in bed by people who are in government at the moment. Honorable Speaker, we are told the number D, potential of loss of public funds amounting to 192 billion. Yet whoever perpetuated this, we have not been told where they are. Honorable Speaker, to sell an asset, to pay pending bills, which have not even been verified, which have been accumulated deliberately, is foolhardy. For how long will you keep on selling assets to pay pending bills and loans you accumulate every day to do non-productive activities? Honorable Speaker, and then the fear, the monopoly and the oligopoly that will come into this. Honorable Speaker, the principle might be good, but the foundation, the principles, the grounds for this privatization is all crooked process, Honorable Speaker. All crooked, all skewed to benefit a few people and leave the Kenyan people poorer than they were. And unfortunately, I stand to oppose. The rest can do whatever they want. I just want to go on record that it has been known there has been a sober voice who stood for the people of Kenya. Thank you.
As the Honorable Dr. James Nyikal. No, there is also ethnic and regional balance in Parliament. Let Honorable Nyikal speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support this with extreme caution. The principle of selling assets and making them private so that they are run in a private way and not by government is good. However, in our circumstances, if you look at a summary of the sessional paper that is put, that actually attached to the order, to the supplementary order paper, the whole thing is actually going to rely on what the Commission of Privatization does. There are a lot of questions that have been put what it should do. If you take number 7 that Honorable Ondo has been talking about, if the Privatization Commission does not actually clearly say what is said in Part 7, the pending bills, some of them are actually lawsuits. So we may actually be getting money to pay lawyers and we do not know what these lawyers were defending. Some of them are in what is involved in this Zakem. We are not quite clear what really happened in those Zakem lawsuits. And if you look at what this summary says in 3, is that actually this is a strategic company. So if it works, it's fine. Should it not work, then it actually will be a disaster to the country. What does pipeline do? It is actually the transportation and the storage of oil. Oil is what the country actually runs on. In our transport system, if oil is not handled well, you are done. Whether you are transporting people, whether you are transporting goods. The next is industry. If we don't manage this issue well, and the transportation, the storage oil goes wrong, all our industries will literally collapse. So that Another one is actually power. We still generate a lot of power using oil. So we are actually talking of the privatization of literally what we live on. And the whole thing is actually in the hands of the Privatization Commission. That is what this parliament is doing today, handing it what I will call the welfare of the country into the Privatization Commission. I don't see what we have put in place to actually protect us. So we'll believe that the commission that we have put in place will actually look after us. If it doesn't, you are in trouble. We have had problems before. Look at the Kenya Railways. Actually, maybe some of this is advice from maybe the World Bank and so on. We were advised to liquidate the properties of the Kenya Railways so that we could actually resuscitate it. It has taken years and years. It is now that we are trying. Some of us may not even realize that at one point, the Kenya Railways owned more property in this country than even the government itself. So I support this, but there's caution that we have to really look at it very carefully, what the commission does. But it needs to also need to know that it will make Kenya Pipeline run properly. What happened in, say, I'll take the example of the depot in Kisumu. The loading is so skewed that exporters actually can take so much time that the local retailers don't even have time to get the fuel that we need. So I agree, I support this, but this caution we must take into consideration, and the Privatization Commission must know what it is taking this country into. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Mwengi Mutuse. Honorable Mwengi Mutuse, before you make your contributions, let me welcome students from Kithimani Primary School, Yatta constituency, Machakos County, who are in the National Assembly this afternoon in the public gallery to observe our proceedings. You're welcome to the House. What is the point of order?
Honorable Speaker, I wish to raise under Standing Order number 95, considering the immense contributions on this debate, and also the next agenda also talks about privatization. I wish to request that the mover is called to reply. Yes.
I will order, honorable members. I'm the one presiding over the House. I'm the one presiding over the House. Honorable Mwengi Mutuse will make his contribution, and at the end of his contribution, I'll put a question for a House decision on what has been raised by Honorable Marianne Keitany, because that is what our standing orders say. Yes, Honorable Mwengi Mutuse, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And if we may be heard in silence. Mr. Speaker, before I make my few points, allow me to disabuse some of the notions that have been put across by some of the colleagues that I respect a lot who have spoken before me. The very respected member, Dr. Aundo, seems to sensationalize this issue just because there has been cases in the past that have failed. And those sensationalism seems to stem from generalizations that are not particularly supported by the facts of the proposed privatization. Dr. Nikao, also a very respected colleague, with the caution to urge that you cannot also drive anticipating an accident. Mr. Speaker, as I say so, privatization is not a new phenomenon. It is not an invention of the broad-based government. It is not an invention of William Ruto. It began in 1992 And we have statutes, the Privatization Act, that speak to this, that have been legislated upon by this parliament. And like has been said before us, there are many cases of successful privatizations. And for that reason, and looking at the mood in the House, Mr. Speaker, I am in support of the point of order by Mary Ann Keitan, that because of many of the contributions appear to be similar in support, that yes, I am with us. Yes, I am with us. So that if it pleases you, Mr. Speaker, that the mover may be called upon to reply and that we are given a chance to contribute in standing order number 14. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order, honorable members. This decision is yours to make, not the Speaker's. Honorable Marianne Keitan, standing under standing order number 95, has requested that a question be put that the mover be called upon to reply, and I so do. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The ayes have it. Yes, so mover. For those who wanted to talk to this matter, the next motion will be about the privatization bill, and we can elaborate more on those ideals. Yeah, mover, proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to reply, and first allow me to extend my sincere appreciation to the House. Under your able leadership, I also wish to thank my co-chair, the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Energy, and indeed all the members of the two committees for the dedication and support they have demonstrated throughout the consideration of this report. Honorable Speaker, it's our expectation that the National Treasury will undertake the listing with the highest degree of transparency and integrity. We further urge that deliberate measures be put in place to ensure that ordinary Kenyans have the opportunity to participate in this IPO. These include effective marketing, accessible public communication, and affordable financing mechanism that empowers citizens to acquire shares. In this way, we will promote equitable ownership and ensure that the benefits of privatization are broadly shared across the nation. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to reply.
Let those who need to take their seats do so. Honorable Soro, you will take your seat. You take your seat. I know the work you are doing is for the House, but now we take our seats and we make decision. Yeah, so honorable members, I now put the question that this House adopts the joint report of the Departmental Committee on Energy and Select Committee on Public Debt and Privatization on the consideration of the sessional paper number 2 of 2025 on the proposed privatization of Kenya Pipeline Corporation Company Limited, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 14th August 2025, and 1, approves sessional paper number 2 of 2025 on the privatization of Kenya Pipeline Company Limited, and 2, makes policy resolution as contained in the schedule to the order paper. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The ayes have it. So would the majority leader approach the speaker? Yeah, call order number 14. Next order.
Order number 14, the privatization bill, National Assembly Bill number 36 of 2025, second reading.
Mover. The leader of the majority party.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the privatization bill, National Assembly Bill number 36 of 2025, be now read a second time. Honorable Speaker, by way of introduction, it's important to note that this is a very critical legislation or legislative initiative that presents a very conscious recalibration of our approach as a nation to the privatization of state-owned enterprises. Honorable Speaker, as you correctly alluded to, even the order that we have just concluded on order number 13, those who have not had the opportunity to contribute under this bill is also an opportunity to say what we may have to say about the privatization of state-owned enterprises. This bill is a direct response to constitutional and public governance imperatives and reflects lessons that we have learned from recent judicial determinations concerning the previous legal framework, Honorable Speaker, because as members, you remember, we did pass the Privatization Act of 2023, and Honorable Speaker, the Privatization Act of 2023, which intended to replace the older Privatization Act of 2005. And when we intended to modernize our privatization process, the act was challenged immediately. We passed it in court by a judgment that was delivered on September 24, 2024, in the case of Katiba Institute and others versus the Speaker of the National Assembly and others. The High Court declared that the Privatization Act of 2023 was unconstitutional, null and void. And the court found that Parliament had failed to conduct meaningful public participation and had undermined constitutional values of transparency, separation of powers, and legislative oversight, especially regarding sensitive decisions to divest state assets without parliamentary approval. And therefore, the decision restored the legal environment to the status quo that was there, therefore reverting to the 2005 Act. And this bill, therefore, Honorable Speaker, seeks to address the issues that were raised by the court. And indeed, I must take this opportunity to thank the chair of the Privatization Committee, the Honorable Shurie, and his committee for the very meticulous work that they put in to ensure that they addressed each and every of the issues that were raised by the court, and especially around the issue of public participation. And this bill has been drafted in a way that it bridges all those gaps that were identified and lays a very good foundation for a constitutionally grounded privatization framework for the country to move us forward. It once again establishes the Privatization Authority, as was there in the 2023 Act, as a professional and independent body tasked with advising the government on privatization matters, and also preparing proposals for privatization and overseeing the implementation of such privatization processes. Unlike its predecessor, or the Bill of 2023, this bill enshrines robust parliamentary and public participation safeguards, restoring the National Assembly's oversight role, and reinstates the requirement for parliamentary approval, not merely executive notification, before any privatization process can proceed. Honorable Speaker, that is very critical, because one of the issues that the court, many Kenyans raised, and even those who went to court, was on the question of public participation, which I have said was adequately addressed in the processing of this bill, and also the issues that have been raised in terms of the separation of powers between the executive and the legislature, and especially the question of removing the oversight role of Parliament in terms of privatization matters. And therefore, this bill is restoring those powers to the National Assembly, that any privatization process in this country will not be a mere notification to the National Assembly of the privatization program by the executive, but they must seek approval from Parliament, and therefore it is only Parliament that can approve privatization processes, because as was said even in the previous proposal, Honorable Speaker, under order number 13, this is a matter that touches on divestiture from public investments and public assets, and therefore the people's representatives have a role to execute. Honorable Speaker, that is what now this bill is doing. Honorable Speaker, the current legal framework for privatization, as I said, is anchored around the Act of 2005, which became operational in 2008. And many of you remember 2008 was before the promulgation of the new constitution. And therefore, the Act as it is today does not address critical constitutional principles under the new constitution. And we have therefore worked, and I must thank the committee again because they ensured that this bill is in tandem with the 2010 constitution, unlike the 2005 Act, which is not in tandem with the new constitution. Honorable Speaker, another key strength of the bill is the emphasis on transparency and inclusivity. As I mentioned, Honorable Speaker, there were issues raised on inclusivity of the public in matters privatization, in the matter that was in court. And the bill is now mandating consultations with affected stakeholders during the preparation of privatization programs, public gazettement of approved programs. Therefore, you must engage with the relevant stakeholders. If, for instance, you want to privatize a company or any state corporation, you must engage with the stakeholders in that industry beforehand. And also gazette, in the public gazette, the approved privatization programs and publication of key details of completed transactions. It's not enough to just notify people that we intend to privatize this and that state corporation. You must engage with key stakeholders in that particular sector. And also post the privatization, you must come back and report to the Kenyan people the details of the completed transactions. And that's what I was saying, even on the IPO for Kenya Pipeline Company, once we get into the IPO, the government will be obligated to come back to the people's representatives and through them to the people to report on progress of the completed transaction. And therefore, that creates a very good structure for ensuring that there is not only inclusivity, but there is transparency and accountability in the manner in which we transact matters to do with privatization. And I did hear the Honorable Oudo, the member for Funyula, speak at length. And you know it's good to speak to the gallery, Honorable Speaker, in this house, because we are not in a church, we are in a house of parliament, there is politics, and it's good for the Honorable Oudo to speak to the gallery and excite those that he seeks to excite. But facts speak better than the speaking to the public gallery. Facts as are the laws that we are enacting today, the legislative proposals before us, whether it is that sessional paper that we have just approved, or this privatization bill, the matter of inclusivity, transparency, and accountability have become cardinal in these laws. And how I wish Honorable Oudo was here to contribute to these issues. I can see him walking back, so that he can articulate the issues he was articulating now, because they are very well stipulated in these bills. And I was thanking Honorable Oudo for speaking to the gallery, speaking to the people of Funyula to see that he's indeed a doctor who can speak good English. But the good English is also the good English that has been put in this legislative proposal that ensures that the things, Honorable Oudo, is good you are here, that you are speaking to, issues touching on transparency, inclusivity, engagement with stakeholders, ensuring there is accountability, and beyond the process, coming back to report on the completed transaction. Therefore, Honorable Oudo, if you read this bill and internalize it, because I have also seen there are also others who came here to just vote and walk out. And you know them. Yeah? Yes, you know them. But ask them what is contained in these legislative proposals. Ask the member for Kajiado North, for instance. Ask him what is in this bill. He has no idea. Ask him what was in the sessional paper. No idea. Yeah. So, Honorable Speaker, I am speaking to these issues because we are now in debate second reading. Please take time and read the bill. Internalize it. See how well this bill has been processed by the committee we deliberately in the last parliament separated from the Finance and National Planning Committee the Committee on Public Debt and Privatization, so that we have diligent members of this House, diligent members like Honorable Shurie, Honorable Makali Mulu, and the other members like Honorable Makilap, who sit in this committee, Honorable Mboko Milemba, a seasoned member of this House, and this committee of very serious legislators has sat for long hours to ensure that this particular bill will pass not just the test of time, but also the constitutionality, so that it doesn't befall the fate that befell the 2023 Act, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, I just want to conclude by saying that this bill now provides a very clear review and appeals mechanism through the Privatization Appeals Board. And therefore, it's not enough to just come back and report on the completed transaction. If any Kenyan is dissatisfied with the manner in which a particular privatization is being carried out, they can appeal to the Appeals Board, Privatization Appeals Board, with the possibility also of further recourse to the High Court. And therefore, this further promotes fairness and accountability, the fairness and accountability that the Honorable Oudo was speaking to. And I invite Honorable Oudo and many of us to now support this privatization bill so that it becomes an act of parliament, so that it can guide us and shepherd us through the process of privatization. Because, Honorable Speaker, as I said, privatization is here with us and we can't run away from it. And I have heard the concerns of many people when we speak about privatization. Oh, we are selling state assets. We are selling our strategic investments. Honorable Owen Bayer spoke something in his local language that said, you use what you possess. Loosely translated from what we say in my community, I was saying, even as we say, Modu Adagia Borieria Enayo, that you can only dispose of that goat that you own and that you have, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, when you have resources and we are constrained in raising revenues in this country, Honorable Speaker, because when I hear people oppose the privatization of state-owned assets to raise resources for the state to deliver services to the people, whether it is in infrastructure, whether it is in healthcare, the same people oppose raising of taxes. Then when they appear on TV stations, because they want to look intelligent, they say, oh, government must innovate new ways of raising money. Which are the new ways other than raising money from the capital markets? Which are the new ways other than privatization of such profitable companies? Because you do not sell that which is dead. You sell that which is alive. Even in your cowshed, Honorable Clive, you cannot sell your dying cows. You sell those that are strong, those that will fetch better prices in the market. Then they will help you to acquire new investments, new calves, healthier ones. I don't know, Honorable Clive, because he went to the Alliance High School, he knows these things. He knows these things. And because I know Honorable Clive Gesairo went to Alliance, and I know he knows these things. At times I look at him speaking elsewhere, and I wonder, Honorable Gesairo, because you know these things, and you know it is the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do for the country. It is the right thing to do for our constituents. Let us use privatization to raise money so that we do not overtax Kenyans. Because when you oppose privatization, when you oppose IPOs, you are telling government, go back and borrow, go back and raise taxes. Government is telling you today that we do not want to overtax Kenyans. We do not want to raise higher taxes. We do not want to raise our public debt. We want to utilize the resources that we have, Honorable Speaker. And you know, the savings that we have encouraged, and again, Honorable Speaker, it speaks to the issues that we are speaking about. About 6 years ago, when we amended the NSSF Act to ensure that we encourage the savings culture, many people at that time opposed it, and you remember even people went to court. Today, we can see the benefits of having entrenched that savings culture in NSSF. When we talk about privatization today, we have an opportunity now for NSSF because they have resources that they have raised in the last 3 years that are equivalent double the resources that they raised over 60 years. Therefore, this is one strategic investor, NSSF, that can invest in our PPP model of financing infrastructure projects, that can invest in some of these companies that government is directly divesting from, because NSSF is an independent body corporate. NSSF is not the government of Kenya. Therefore, nothing stops NSSF from investing, for instance, in the IPO on Kenya Pipeline for NSSF to own another 25% of the pipeline. Nothing stops NSSF. And that is our money as Kenyans, money that we are saving for our old age. What better investment opportunity other than through this privatization, even for our other state-owned enterprises and other authorities like NSSF to invest in our own economy, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me not belabor, because this bill is largely a repetition of the 2023 Act with the corrections that have now constitutionalized the issues that the court had declared unconstitutional, and therefore beg to move and request the indomitable chair of the Privatization and Public Debt Committee, who has put in a lot of work together with this committee to ensure that this bill becomes a business to be considered before this House, to second this motion in agreement. I beg to move.
Yeah, you will proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to second the motion on the Privatization Bill 2025 as moved by the Leader of Majority, the Honorable Ichung'wah. Honorable Speaker, this bill has undergone extensive and rigorous deliberations by both committees, the Public Debt and Privatization Committee and the Finance and National Planning Committee. Members devoted significant time and expertise to examine its provisions with the objective of ensuring that the proposed legal framework adequately responds to both present and future challenges, while unlocking opportunities that a modernized privatization regime can deliver to our country. Honorable Speaker, allow me to highlight the key strengths of this bill. 1, enhanced public participation and inclusivity. This legislation is the product of one of the most comprehensive public participation exercises undertaken in recent years. The committees facilitated the submission of written memoranda and conducted stakeholder consultations across 25 counties, thereby ensuring that voices from diverse sectors and regions informed the proposed framework. We wish to appreciate your office and that of the Clerk of the National Assembly for the facilitation that made this exercise possible. 2, strengthen parliamentary oversight and transparency. The bill significantly enhances the role of the National Assembly in overseeing privatization. It stipulates that the privatization program and each proposed transaction relating to a state-owned enterprise must receive the express approval of this House. This provision entrenches accountability, transparency, and democratic legitimacy in the privatization process while safeguarding the public interest. 3, safeguards for stakeholders and efficient appeals mechanism. The bill institutionalizes avenues for various stakeholders, including employees, investors, and the wider public, to express their concerns and perspectives. In addition, it establishes an expedited and more efficient appeals mechanism, thereby promoting fairness, predictability, and investor confidence. 4, economic efficiency and unlocking idle assets. Honorable Speaker, our nation continues to shoulder the fiscal burden of underperforming state-owned enterprises. The passage of this bill will enable the efficient and effective privatization of entities whose productive and economic capacity is underutilized. In doing so, it will reallocate resources towards more productive uses, stimulate private sector investment, and foster economic competitiveness. 5, transparency, accountability, and market confidence. The bill sets out clear principles for privatization, anchoring the process on transparency, accountability, and public disclosure. This is vital for sustaining public trust and attracting both domestic and international investment capital. 6, introduction of a sunset clause for the privatization program. A particular progressive feature of this bill is the introduction of a 4-year sunset clause for each privatization program. This provision ensures that privatization transactions are implemented within a clear medium-term timeframe, aligned with the prevailing macroeconomic conditions. It provides certainty to the market, supports financial planning by investors, and reduces risk associated with long-term policy uncertainty. Honorable Speaker, in conclusion, I wish to record my sincere appreciation to the Leader of Majority, the co-chair of my co-chair, chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning, for the spirit of collaboration that characterized our joint engagements. I equally extend gratitude to members of both committees whose diligence and commitment to robust scrutiny of the bill have culminated in the report before us today. With those remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to second and urge this Honorable House to support the passage of the Privatization Bill 2025. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Order, honorable members. Honorable members, I now propose the question the Privatization Bill, National Assembly Bill number 36 of 2025, be now read a second time. The Honorable Omboko Milemba.
Thank you, the Almighty. Thank you, the Honorable Speaker, for this chance. And let me thank the movers of the bill. On privatization, Honorable Speaker, privatization is a process that is very vital for this country. And it comes from the fact that we have had state-owned enterprises, and there are many. Originally, they were called the parastatals. And they were created for a purpose. The purpose for which they were created, some of them has now outlived their existence. Majority of them were formed at independence when the country was also facing transition from the colonial government to self-independence. And Honorable Speaker, the country needed to balance the investments in different areas of the country away from that to create employment for the Kenyans who are there. And also the private sector was very weak and therefore could not invest in certain areas. And when they invested, Honorable Speaker, they did invest in areas that they thought were of great interest in terms of profiteering. But they avoided others. I'm happy we have been talking about the Kenya pipeline. That's one of the areas where at the independence, the private sector would not invest in because of lack of the immense capital required and at the same time, the interest by the private sector. But then along the way, Honorable Speaker, these investments have outlived the need for government to continue investing themselves. Some of them, if you remember, were as simple as just supermarkets like Uchumi, and others were simple, like transport sector taxis when we used to have Kenatco, for those who remember. And some of them were as simple as just wholesaling businesses. But with time, the private sector has really increased and has actually gained capacity. And therefore, there's no real need of government continuing to compete with the private sector on sections or on businesses that otherwise can be done by the private sector better. Experience has also shown, Honorable Speaker, that the private sector, when given a chance to do those businesses like hotels, that reminds me very quickly of hotels like the Golf Hotel in Kakamega, the Sunset in Kisumu, which you may find that the government is still struggling to invest in such like businesses. When the private sector is doing better in terms of investing in hotels. And therefore, this law comes in timely. And the dangers that were associated with this law have been removed by the intense public participation that our committee did do insofar as the privatization is concerned. So one thing I want to be clear to Kenyans is that the process of privatization is with us and is a correct process which will actually offload the government of the burden of retaining issues like taxing people more in order to invest in these private enterprises that are no longer making profits, paying the workers who are those in private enterprises that do not make profits, and therefore actually putting pressure on the consolidated fund, which otherwise then have to make sure that these enterprises are paid, while at the same time increasing the wage bill, which otherwise would be reduced if we privatized these enterprises and therefore will be run by the private sector. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I want to support this bill and indicate that some of the key areas that have been handled, as already indicated by the mover and the seconder of the bill, is the fact that the Parliament or the National Assembly, the Parliament has been brought in the center of this process. This was very vital because these are enterprises that are owned by the public, and therefore the representatives of the people who are in this House should have a pivotal, a very important, a core position in the process of doing the privatization. And therefore that has been included in this bill, and it is very, very good this time. Number two, Honorable Speaker, public participation, the threshold to be actually attained is very, very important so that we don't have cases where we have this privatization being done by the executive at a different corner, and therefore the House or the representative of the people may not have a voice on what is happening. Honorable Speaker, transparency, inclusivity and accountability in this process is also very important, and this bill addresses this, including those who are involved in these bodies that, or enterprises that need to be privatized, so that the workers, for instance, are involved and they have a stake, and it's taken that the workers will have this place for themselves upon the end of the privatization, because this has been one of the most serious challenges for the workers of Kenya. Whenever privatization occurs, then they are left out, and that has not been very good. So the employees and the workers, but the community also, because some of these enterprises may touch on community-owned or owned enterprises. We have our parks and other institutions that you may need to also consult the community, and the community should have a hand in actually saying that this is how it should be done. Also, the timeline now has been put in law so that the process can be done within a time frame that is known. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, this is a very good law, and this House must stand and take the oversight role of the process of privatization strongly, and also take the public participation very, very strongly, so that when the processes are occurring, they are transparent and every citizen is happy that it has been done very, very well. Honorable Speaker, with the passage of this bill, the government shall be able to deal with some of the the publicly owned enterprises which are lying idle in the country. And most of them are in form of either factories, other hotels, and also the land on which they are lying. We shall also be asking that the valuation of these enterprises be done in a very open way, the Auditor General, so that the audit reports are also brought to Parliament for proper debating to understand that the valuations so given are the correct valuations for those government-owned enterprises that are being sold. And this is the way to go. The government cannot continue competing with the private sector in small enterprises like hotels, like markets, supermarkets, and many others which have made the government to spend more and actually taxes people more simply because they are trying to sustain these state-owned enterprises in the name of parastatus. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank you for this opportunity, support this bill, and also indicate that even the one that I missed to speak on, the one that has gone earlier on the Kenya pipeline, we believe that with an aspect of privatization, the running of these organizations become more serious, accountability is there, profits are made, and a good example is the Kenya Power and Lighting. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I beg to support.
The Honorable David Mboni from the Finance and National Planning Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On onset, let me say I support this bill, not because I'm a member of Finance and National Planning Committee, but my background is economics, and therefore I know a bill like this one is in my area of specialization. Mr. Speaker, let me start by saying, after the independence, the government embarked on setting up parastatus and government agencies, and currently they stand at around 200, over 200 parastatus and government agencies. And basically they were to undertake legislative work and bridge gaps where private sector go. By then, private sector was very weak and could not offer services by that time. So the government set up parastatus, like Kenya National Trade Corporation, NOC, so that they can provide services where private sector could not be able to provide. Mr. Speaker, in the early 1990s, during the structural adjustment and liberalization of the economy. The economy moved from government-controlled economy, that is command economy, to open economy and market economy, where demand and supply determines the market price. And because of that, most of the parastatals have become irrelevant to the economy. For example, Kenya National Trading Corporation, which was dealing with consumable goods, cement and building materials, has become irrelevant. And most of the parastatals have become, they have faced mismanagement and corruption challenges. And they have become a big stress, a very big stress to the exchequer. The billions of shillings we are spending on this parastatal. In fact, I propose, even some of them we should even give them for free. Because if you are spending money on something which is broad bringing profit, you are making a loss on that thing. So I really don't care. And I know some people may say that I'm from the opposition, and I'm supporting a bill which is not supposed to be supported by the opposition, but this is the right way to go, Mr. Speaker. When we were doing public participation for this bill, there were a few questions which were being asked. One, the selling of Kenya Pipeline Corporation and this private bill, which should come first? I think that's a question which you should ask yourselves. Which should come first? And I really have no problem with that. The other thing which came up is the valuation of the parastatals. How are they going to be valued? The Kenyans have no problem with the selling of these parastatals, but they fear the valuation, most of them may be undervalued, and they may end up in wrong hands. Even they were also questioning the methods of selling of the parastatals. Is it going to be transparent and accountable to the Kenyan people? But when you look at the bill, and the other thing they were questioning is, are Kenyans going to be given a chance to buy the parastatals? But when you look at the bill, it is addressing those concerns. Mr. Speaker, I know we have done privatization of some of the parastatals in this country, and there are success stories like Kenya Commercial Bank, that is a success story. Safaricom is a success story. Kengen is also a success story. But there are also unsuccessful stories like Kenya Airways. And in the recent years, we have spent a lot of money on Kenya Airways. And Mr. Speaker, the money we have spent, I think we need to look at the equity. If our equity as a government has increased in Kenya Airways. Mr. Speaker, this bill is trying to address the defects which were being addressed, which were not addressed in the private bill 2023, which was annulled by the court because of a simple thing like public participation, which we have actually conducted. Mr. Speaker, looking at the bill, clause 8, it establishes the privatization authority to steer the privatization agenda, and is going to be in charge of the privatization. And this is a very, very, very important thing, clause, because, Speaker, for the last 10 years, more than 10 years, we have not been able to sell any parastatal. And when you look at Nairobi Stock Exchange, has been somehow very, very, very dormant, because we are not offloading some of these shares. And when you sell some of these parastatals, for example, we are going to get money from the exchequer, get money into the exchequer, and we are also going to save money from supporting this parastatal, which has amounted to a lot of stress to the exchequer. Clause 22 through 23 of the bill provides for the privatization of private program by the Cabinet Secretary of National Treasury. And this program is supposed to be forwarded to Cabinet for approval and brought in National Assembly also for approval. In the program, in the National Assembly, the National Assembly can do three things. One, they can approve the whole program, they can amend the program, or disapprove the whole program. And this is where the oversight role of Parliament is very important, so that we are not going to find a situation whereby these parastatals are undervalued. If we feel they are undervalued, then we can be able to reject the program for individual parastatal or all of them. Mr. Speaker, Clause 21 provides for detailed proposal for each identity listed in the program and outline the following. One, the method. If you are selling, for example, let's say we are selling, for example, Kenya Pipeline. The program should have a proposal on how that identity is going to be sold. For example, we are going to have the method of privatization. Is it initial public offering or any other method? For example, private placement or sale of assets. And of course, how the shares are also going to be sold to the employees. Because I've seen most of the parastatals when they are being sold, there's a percentage which is supposed to go to the employees so that they can also be able to own shares in the company. Two, the method, the approach, and the method of valuation. How is the parastatal going to be valued? So that at least people understand this parastatal has been valued at this, and this is what we have arrived in terms of value for the parastatal. Three, implication for employees. How are employees going to be treated? Are they going to remain in the parastatal, or are they going to be given a handshake? And lastly, safeguards for public interest. Mr. Speaker, this process will give transparency in the private program and accountability to the Kenyan people. The bill provides a framework for appeals for aggrieved person. And this where Honorable Oundo, when he feels that he's aggrieved, he can go and appeal on the program, so that at least the courts can be able to address the concerns on how that parastatal is being sold. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support.
Honorable members, let me interrupt the proceedings a bit to welcome students and teachers from a school who are seated in our public gallery to observe proceedings. This is Enosagami Wa Schools, Narok South, Narok County. They are welcome to the National Assembly to observe the proceedings during their learning tour, for this is the house where laws are made, where national government budget is made, and where the executive, the national executive, is oversighted from. You're welcome. The Honorable Makilap.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to, from the onset, that I support this privatization bill, and having been one of those members of Parliament in Committee of Public Debt and Privatization that moved across the country to get views of Kenyans on this privatization bill. So, Speaker, this is not a new thing to this House. This thing was done in 2023, and it was thrown away by the courts for only one major thing, that public participation was not done. So, Speaker, we did a comprehensive public participation this time around across the people of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, one of the things that members who have an opportunity to read about this bill, it sets up structures of privatization. It sets up structures of privatization from establishment of what is called a privatization authority. What does that mean, Chairman, Mr. Speaker? That it reveals
what we used to have as privatization commission to now a privatization authority, which as a chairman, a CEO, and other members even drawn from the public, Mr. Speaker. And these members from the public are expertise in various areas which are established in this particular bill. It is cited in this bill that these are the members who will be appointed to this privatization authority. Mr. Speaker, it also sets what is called a privatization program. Mr. Speaker, this House has been accused that you have abdicated your role to the executive, that Parliament has no role in this particular bill. Those of us who have an opportunity to read, if you read clause 23, clause 24, clause 25, where clause 25 is even very particular, I can read, Mr. Speaker, the National Assembly shall is a must, approve the program for implementation, approve the program with amendments or decline the program. So, Speaker, it sets out the authority, it sets out the program. You know, these are two different things, the program or privatization. And also establishes other committees, even committee or what is called a bill support committee for those who are not satisfied about the privatization process. It is therefore provided for. It also provides what is called a committee to look into the entire program and sets timelines, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is very comprehensive. And during the third reading or during Committee of Supply, you realize what the people of Kenya said when we went around. In fact, the people of Kenya at some point were telling us, why do you want to sell everything? They thought this is a legal framework. It must be known in Kenya that this privatization bill is a legal framework that will continue to exist for many years, and it can always be amended as we move along, Mr. Speaker. So what does this mean? It means it repeals the Privatization Act of 2005. So, Speaker, if you look at 2005 and today, 2025, those are 20 years down the line, and in between, there was an amalgamation of a new constitution where it set out some parastatals under national government, and some have outlived their usefulness. In fact, at some point, Mr. Speaker, the public asked us, why are you interested in selling those which are profitable, like pipeline that we just passed some few minutes ago? So, Speaker, if something is profitable and if you want to make it more profitable, you privatize it so that you have more players, more resources in it, and in return, you will get more revenue. Government gets more revenue by ensuring that the public entity being privatized has many players and putting in resources. Mr. Speaker, it also, if you look at clause 35, subsection 2H, subsection 2 says the privatization proposal shall specify, and this is very critical for the people of Kenya. It says, where applicable, a recommendation on how to undertake socio-economic investment to the host community. To the host community. This is very important for those who have been dealing with sugar or parastatals that are domiciled in specific communities in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, it also highlights an issue of valuation. So, Speaker, Kenyans are very critical in valuation, even including the valuation of what we've just passed called Kenya Pipeline. So, Speaker, Kenyans are saying we could even have more or two valuers so that the correct value of what is supposed to be privatized is realized for the people. Kenyans are interested in security of those who are in those parastatals. And I want to encourage Kenyans and even inform them that even this one for Kenya Pipeline that we've just passed, you know, it will employ, when the Kenya Pipeline is expanded throughout the IPO, there will be many players, there will be many people to be recruited in it, and thus no one is going to lose his job. Mr. Speaker, we also privatized Rivertex alone, Mr. Speaker. Look at Rivertex today. When I was in Finland, the Finnish people were running a program or a program of Privatex doing the process of turning cotton into clothes in Washington, in Eldoret. And it is becoming profitable. What are we saying, Mr. Speaker? This bill is addressing most of the things that are required to be addressed. For example, Mr. Speaker, even when we went to public said, okay, Lord, during the Committee of Supply, you'll realize that there was some qualification or experience of over 10 years experience. And the youth in those places where we went, they say, okay, this thing is good, but reduce for us the number of, and you will see in our report as we move along. So what is very important, Mr. Speaker, is the entities being privatized will be able to bring in resources, bring in revenue, and create more opportunities for the people of Kenya. So let us not see privatization, this framework, as something that is going to sell everything from Kenyans. In fact, it is creating an opportunity to raise the necessary resources to bridge the budget caps. For example, Mr. Speaker, the budget cap of this year is about 923 billion shillings. Some of them will be bridged through what is called public-private partnerships. Others will be through resources that are raised through the IPO. And using IPO, Mr. Speaker, is one of the best ways because this thing protects up to including what is called strategic national assets. It is provided for here. Strategic national assets, Mr. Speaker, because when we were in Eldoret, some people told us you want to sell the bullet factory. And we told them this bill protects strategic national assets from being privatized. So the rumors that are too many in people's heads, Mr. Speaker, has to be actually given the truth about this particular bill. Even the people of Makueni, to remove the worries of Professor, my good friend, Member of Parliament from Professor Warner. You know, the court case awarded the people of Makueni some money for the pipeline and something like that. And when we looked into it, when this thing is, the KBC is privatized, it will be able to bring in more money, and those people will be, the new buyers will take liabilities and everything else. So the guarantee of the people of Makueni to have enough resources is to actually privatize or to be compensated for the pipeline spillage and so on, is actually to privatize this thing so that you can get enough resources. So in short, Mr. Speaker, is even these hotels, I have an hotel and I'm interested to invest in it called Cabernet Hotel, that has been earmarked for privatization. And the workers have not been paid. I will bring something for the workers that used to work in that particular hotel so that they can be able to get their money. So, Mr. Speaker, we must be very careful, and we have looked into this particular privatization bill. We've even come with some amendments, and I want members of Parliament to be very keen so that when the chairman will be moving the amendments, you realize that we took care of the views of Kenyans wherever we went, so that those worries are actually abandoned, Mr. Speaker. I support this particular privatization bill. It's a framework.
The Honorable Dindi Nyoro is recognized to make his contributions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for this chance to give my views on this bill. Honorable Speaker, on the onset, on the economic sense of it, everyone should support a lean government. And a lean government is the one that is left to only adjudicate the services that touches on the people. And therefore, the government must always strive to cut off excess weight. When you carry more than you need, then it pulls you behind. And that is the reason why, ever since, I have been a proponent of government not engaging in the business of doing business. Because what can be done by others, then the government should leave those other people to do, because they do it much more efficiently. Honorable Speaker, the other reason why government must never be too bulky and engaging in too many commercial ventures is because government of Kenya already owns 35% of all the businesses in Kenya indirectly. including the small company any member would be running in this house today. Because as corporate tax is 35%, it means the government of Kenya is actually in the board of your company all the time. And you actually give them a share of 35% of the profit you make. And it means, therefore, they own 35% of all the enterprises indirectly in terms of stakes and in terms of share of revenue, and especially net revenue. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, across the world, many governments continue to shed off whatever can be done by others, and especially in the private sector. But there is always a debate, internationally speaking, Honorable Speaker, because when you look, for example, an economy like the US, an economy like South Korea, they are private sector driven, meaning the government does not necessarily engage in too much commercial activity. But on the other side, when you look at a company like China, you see an economy where the government is dominant in direct ownership of stakes. And all those economies do well. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, it does not necessarily mean everyone is right and entirely right. It all depends on the circumstances, and it all depends on the scenario. Honorable Speaker, the reason why many companies and many governments arrive to the decision of selling many of the corporate entities, and especially the commercial ones they engage in, of course, it enhances efficiency, and of course, and especially when the reason of engaging in it is overtaken by events. Let me give what I mean. As we talk today about the government of Kenya, of us making it easy for offloading of stakes where government have direct shareholding. As late as now, Honorable Speaker, yesterday, the US government was investing in American lithium. They actually invested in a stake of around 5%. In the last 1 month, the US government actually invested $9 billion into Intel. Intel, which was previously a private company. Why? Investments in commercial entities when it comes to the sovereign must be guided on strategic decisions. Why are you engaging in that reason? The reason why you find in Kenya the oldest banks in Kenya, they are national banks in terms of they were previously owned by the state. It was because of the barrier of entry. The barrier of entry of starting a bank back then could only be managed by the sovereign, which is the country or which is the government. But also the confidence. There are areas, for example, in banking around that time when it was a novelty, that no one could actually trust an individual person as an investor with their own money when they held ownership of the bank. And those are the reasons why we find, for example, National Bank, Kenya Commercial Bank, had to be started by government that time because of those reasons. But those reasons have been overtaken by events. And the reason why I say so, Honorable Speaker, there is a lot of inefficiency in government-controlled companies in sectors that are booming. Take, for example, Consolidated Bank. Consolidated Bank is over 98% owned by GOK in various forms. But if you look at a bank like Equity Bank is newer than Consolidated Bank. But Consolidated Bank is actually having now net capital as we talk now, when Equity Bank now have shareholders' funds of over 300 billion Kenya shillings, which is core capital. And their profitability, again, are very diverse. So those strategic decisions back then could not hold today. The strategic decision of the US government investing in a chip-making company in aid of AI in the name of Intel is a today agenda, and therefore it is relevant. The reason for the US government investing in American lithium yesterday for a stake of 5% and also taking some of their risks out of where they are mining lithium, Honorable Speaker, is also based on the current global economy, strategic decision making. And therefore, we must always audit and find what is it that is making strategic sense, what is it that is not making strategic sense, so that we can offload as much as possible to the private sector to do what they know best. Honorable Speaker, Let me talk about how we should spend the money. The previous agenda was about Kenya Pipeline. And Honorable Speaker, my take would be this. For any company that goes through a listing, through an IPO, we must always reserve around 5 to 10% of the proceeds to invest back in other entities, and especially in alternative ways of offering the same service. What do I mean? As we offload any company, then you must take this money, create a venture capital, and invest in other current growth kind of institutions around the same sector. Green energy, and any other thing around power sector, for example, or energy sector. So that as you offload this, you are incubating some others. So that you don't get a time when you've already offloaded your entire portfolio. Honorable Speaker, let me talk something about the current capital markets, because this is very important even for the agenda we had about Kenya Pipeline, and even this bill. Honorable Speaker, capital market is everything about international capital flow. The US, for example, capital markets in equity side alone is double the size of the US GDP. Because all the companies listed in the US, their valuation cumulatively is around 62 trillion US dollars. In the income sectors, in the fixed income side, it is over 55 trillion. What do I mean, Honorable Speaker? If you compare the same with our capital markets here, it is too small, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, we must make every effort to make it more bigger and attractive. But this is the catch, honorable members. I am one of the people who would never actually vouch for the listing of Kenya Pipeline. And I'll give you a very practical reason. The current NSE in Kenya has been bearish this year, going up. But the companies listed are still grossly undervalued. And I can tell you without blinking of an eye, Honorable Speaker, this issue of Kenya Pipeline will bring a lot of excitement. Kenyans will buy in the IPO. But after the announcement of the financial results in February for the full year, the share company will collapse. And the share price will collapse. And this is the reason. The current investors in the NSC are not buying assets. They are buying revenue. They are buying the bottom line. What do I mean? Look, for example, a company like Kenya Power. Kenya Power has a valuation, the entire Kenya Power has only a valuation, a market cap of only 27 billion. The reason I use the name only is in comparative to the assets. It has assets of over 350 billion shillings. And it's a company that's making net revenues of 20 billion, but the valuation is 27 billion. Now, a company like Kenya Re, a company has net assets of over 51 billion, net assets. And the valuation in the market, Honorable Speaker, is 17 billion shillings. This company, Kenyans will buy out of excitement, but after the announcement next year of the full year results, the share price will collapse. And that is why I am also fearing that the government may end up forcing NSSF and other provident funds to actually take part in this, because commercially it may not be viable for a logical investor. And that is why we need to draw the line, so that we
Honorable Ndindi Nyoro will be given 2 more minutes.
And Honorable Speaker, I think I have made that point. The current investor is not buying assets. The current investor in the market is buying net revenue. And if you look at the profitability of Kenya Pipeline, last year was 6.8 billion. Average for 5 years is 5 billion. An equivalent company in the NSC making a profit of 5 billion, including a bank, the valuation is not more than 35 billion. So that is the kind of valuation that investors are going to encounter as we come on next. The other thing is control. We fight government-owned entities, Honorable Speaker. Government owns 18% of KCB, but then control 100% of the board. That is one of the things that even the listing of the asset that will be listed should be captured. That the government cannot own 35% of an asset, then control 100% of the board. The other 65% should be given board positions. And if the government is giving the CEO then the chairman should not be from the government, should be from the private sector. Honorable Speaker, the real valuation I was talking about, this is a topic I can talk about the whole day, Honorable Speaker. If you look at a company like Kengen, the valuation is around 55 billion. If you look at the peers in a place like Nigeria, like Geregu Power, Transcorp Power, doing the same and producing less, actually have the capacity of Kengen. The valuation is 200 billion respectively and 211 billion Kenya shillings if you convert from Naira. So what am I trying to say? Our market is not doing justice to valuations. And listing a company now may not suffice. Maybe a strategic investor. Unfortunately, strategic investor cannot work in an area like Kenya where we have a deficit in trust in government. Because if you do strategic investor, the high probability is that patronage will and the person on the other side of the table will actually be the one buying.
The Honorable Catherine Omanyo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support this bill fully because, first of all, public participation must be done because it involves public property. And anything that is owned by the public must extensively and intensively be looked into and supported fully by the public. And herein we have representatives of the people. Before it is now passed, we will be here as well. My question is, if any property is privatized, does it mean that the person taking over is carrying it to their homeland, is carrying it to China? No, it is still our property, but managed by people who can do it better, efficiently, more transparency, more transparent. So we do not want negative energy over this because if this is well done, unemployment to the youth will be something gone, dead and gone, and also quality of how we manage things. You know, if we bring in somebody who can manage properly, it means that our country will be developing. I know very well that other nations that are developed have done it before. It is not something new. I saw it happen with Kengen, our Safaricom, and Safaricom is even one of the best example to put across. So although we know many voices come dissentingly to discourage and put a lot of poison in our people's mind, we should embrace this idea as long as we are in charge, we are in control, and we are not being taken advantage of in any way. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Cynthia Muge.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this bill. I want to say that I support the provisions in this bill. Honorable Speaker, there have been so many questions since privatization set into this country when the idea came. And Honorable Speaker, some of the entities that went through privatization prior to this bill have had a thorough beating. Honorable Speaker, I looked at what happened to Rivertex recently, a few days ago. And there were a lot of gaps that I felt like they should have been addressed before the privatization decision was made. And some of those issues, Honorable Speaker, I appreciate because this bill has been able to look into them. It includes, and not limited to, Honorable Speaker, looking at the assets and even the liabilities that these companies have. And Honorable Speaker, it should be noted that, for example, Rivertex, the land that Rivertex sits on, and even Rivertex itself, is primarily owned by Moi University. Moi University, Honorable Speaker, you know the issues that has been going through. And when the privatization agreement was made, the amount of money that was being given as a proceed of the privatization of Rivertex was an amount of money, Honorable Speaker, that was undervalued. You cannot say that the land that Rivertex sits on, which is very prime in Eldoret, Honorable Speaker, goes for the amount that was paid as proceeds of that privatization. And Honorable Speaker, if that particular piece of land and even the investment in Rivertex had been valued properly, Moi University wouldn't be borrowing and begging the national government for a bailout for around 2 billion, Honorable Speaker. They would have been able to comfortably get the money from the privatization of Rivertex, and Rivertex goes ahead to be able to make profits and make sense economically in this country. And I appreciate this particular bill because it has been able to look at those particular matters. The other issue, Honorable Speaker, is the issue of human resource. The people, as we speak, that worked in Rivertex today, Honorable Speaker, are jobless as we speak today. And I am glad and happy that this particular bill is seeking to be able to undertake better public participation and be able to do more consultation so that we can be able to arrive at better decisions in regards to privatization of these particular entities, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I appreciate and I support privatization because today, as we speak, Honorable Speaker, I read a Facebook post, and of course I have been able to listen to many things that are being said by the people, especially from Nandi. As we speak today, Honorable Speaker, KCC has not been able to pay farmers for 4 months. Honorable Speaker, this is an entity that does not miss or cannot be said that milk was not delivered to them. The milk was properly delivered to KCC, and the farmers have been able to invest in production of the milk. But Honorable Speaker, 4 months down the line, that particular farmer has not been paid. Why? Because of how KCC is being run. And Honorable Speaker, I feel like I wish I could carry KCC and put better management and prudent management and put some idea and agenda into their heads that this should be a farmer-centered entity, that you get the milk, you add value, and you pay the farmer on time. And Honorable Speaker, the more reason why I support this privatization and the bill that will be able to guide privatization is because of such issues, so that we can have the people who are actually bringing raw material into an entity get paid on time. Honorable Speaker, for a very long time, government entities has been associated with bureaucracies and inefficiencies. And I feel like this privatization, Honorable Speaker, is able to finally take off the responsibility of service delivery, or so to speak, Honorable Speaker, from government entities, so that then we can finally go and run away from bureaucracies and the inefficiencies that are associated with it. Honorable Speaker, the things that we have in this country are of very high value. The problem that we have, Honorable Speaker, is the mentality. We are not commercially, we have not adopted a commercial model in many things that we run. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I feel like this bill is finally going to lead this country and most of the entities that have been a burden and a baggage to this country, and especially the tight fiscal space, an opportunity to be able to offload it. And Honorable Speaker, I am more than happy to remove most of these entities from getting or requiring exchequer bailouts so that they can be able to go out there and be able to generate their own money. So, Honorable Speaker, I really appreciate the thought process that went into this bill so that we can finally properly guide privatization of the entities so that, one, we can achieve service delivery and we can be able to have a more efficient delivery of service to the people in Kenya, Honorable Speaker, and most importantly, be able to sort out especially the Kenyans that are providing raw materials for some of these entities to be able to run. So, Honorable Speaker, I support this bill and I hope that it actually gets appropriate implementation so that it can be able to sort out the so many historical issues and problems that we have faced as a country and as a people in this country. So, Honorable Speaker, I support this bill.
The Honorable Dr. Otiende Amolo, Senior Counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was hoping the wise man now taking your attention would listen to our contribution, because during a time like this, years back, he supported a similar bill which we passed despite our objection and ended up being nullified. But wisdom has no limit. But Mr. Speaker, on a serious note, I need your direction. I hope someone will tell the Honorable Ndindi Nyoro what I said. Mr. Speaker, before my time starts running, under the standing orders, once a bill has been moved and seconded, we are supposed to contribute, and the mover and the seconder are supposed to listen. So when they reply, they are able to address some of our concerns. From what I can see, there's the mover has just now appeared, and I like that. I think I should keep making these objections.
The Honorable Dr. Otiende Amolo.
Yes.
This parliament, we listen to parliament from various places.
Thank you.
The mover was actually behind here, listening to every word.
Thank you.
So that
Now, Mr. Speaker, may you direct that my time starts running now? Mr. Speaker, I support this bill with reservations. And I support it because it has many good provisions, but some provisions that require to be re-examined. It is my hope that either the committee has re-examined them and will be moving them, or will consider them during the committee of the whole House. Mr. Speaker, this is an improvement, but in my view, it is still not perfect. And I want to start with what has been said in terms of approval by Parliament. Mr. Speaker, if you look at Section 20, what Parliament submits is a program. It is the program, not the specific approval. And I want you to juxtapose Section 20 with Section 22 of the provisions and Section 26. Section 20 and 22 in Section 36, when it comes to the cabinet receives the specific proposal for each, not the program. Section 36(1). And when you read 36(2), moving forward, the cabinet then approves each specific unit for privatization, as opposed to Parliament, where we are given a whole program. It is therefore not entirely correct to say that under this bill, Parliament specifically approves the privatization. And in my opinion, that is wrong. Parliament should retain the discretion to approve the specific unit of privatization, not some overall program. Mr. Speaker, I then draw your attention to Section 23. In this section, you see that Parliament is restricted to 60 days. Parliament must approve within 60 days. I know of no other legislation, well, except the Constitution itself, that introduces similar provisions. And in this case, does not make any reference to when Parliament is on recess. Many times, they would have a proviso that time runs when Parliament is on session, not when it is on recess. But I see no such provision. Mr. Speaker, if you look at Section 32, it treats Kenyans and non-Kenyans alike. But where it says that it can be any person, whether Kenyan or non-Kenyan, then it raises eyebrows, because I thought if you must refer to it, then you'd want to give some preferential treatment to Kenyans if they are of equal footing. But when you say that it does not matter, then it is of worry to me. Coming back to Section 20, on public participation that was spoken about, you realize that under this bill, the public participation is actually done by the Cabinet Secretary, as opposed to where we have usually been, where it is Parliament that does public participation. If you read that with the restriction in terms of the 60 days, it drives you to the conclusion that this bill wants the public participation to be done by the executive and wants no window for public participation by Parliament. And I have a problem with that. Mr. Speaker, Section 53, and this is a bit technical, but you'll understand it.
Honorable Otiende Amolo, you know, whenever you speak, the House goes quiet. Is there business that can be transacted by Parliament that does not involve public participation?
That is my submission.
If we consider the provisions of Article 118.
Let me answer it in this way. And that is, what you've said is my exact concern. That Section 20 of this bill gives the Cabinet Secretary the discretion to do public participation. When it comes to Parliament, then, Section 23 restricts Parliament to 60 days. The point being this, in my view, that restriction will constrain the ability of Parliament to do public participation. That is my submission. And that then becomes unconstitutional.
It will constrain Parliament in terms of time.
Yes.
But it cannot take away the obligation imposed on Parliament by Article 118, which I may read. I'll freeze your time. That Parliament shall conduct its business in an open manner, and its sittings and those of its committees shall be in public, and facilitate public participation and involvement in the legislative and other business of Parliament and its committees. So privatization at that level becomes other business of Parliament.
Everything you've read amplifies my argument.
Thank you.
And this, it is in twofold. One, that while Section 20 provides an avenue for public participation expressly by the Cabinet Secretary, there is no corresponding section that expressly provides for public participation by Parliament. That's the first limb. The second limb is that by restricting the time to 60 days, and you know how public participation works, it may interfere with the duty of Parliament to do public participation. And that is my problem with those two sections.
Thank you,
I now
Honorable
come
Mono.
to my last submission.
Thank you, Honorable Mono.
My last submission is this.
Yes.
In relation to Section 53.
No, Honorable Amulo does not want information from you, Mover.
No. Mover, that's why I wanted you back. Take notes keenly, and then when you are replying, you will be able to respond.
I have heard Honorable Amolo Mover to be saying
yes,
there could be amendment to the period.
But that is why I started.
Parliament.
Mr. Speaker, I started by saying this. But
Yes,
what is the
Mover.
point of order?
You can also freeze his Honorable Tiende's time because I just need...
Honorable Tiende, I will not
because
freeze your
the
time,
issue
but
Honorable
I will
Tiende
add you time.
is raising, Honorable Speaker, and you have alluded to it, is critical on public participation. And you have clearly read the provisions of Article 118 of the Constitution. I just wanted Honorable Tiende to help the House as a senior counsel. When the Constitution explicitly provides for public participation, that Parliament must conduct public participation on any legislative proposal, an act of Parliament can never negate that, and that is my understanding of basic law. And I'm not a student of law. That's why I wanted Honorable Tiende to educate me and the House and Kenyans whether the absence of that explicit provision in this statute or this proposed statute negates that which is provided for in the Constitution. Because my understanding, Honorable Speaker, from what you are saying, is that it does not negate, and Parliament will be obligated, as we do with all other legislative proposals, to carry out public participation. Just that clarification.
Honorable Otiende Amolo, because you are in the committee of experts only, otherwise you owe the mover no obligation of education.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, so proceed.
Indeed. And you know, indeed, Mr. Speaker, we allow the mover that discretion, but that is not a point of order. That is a point of argument. But let me now then explain what the problem is. Slowly. Two things, Mr. Speaker. One is that because the Constitution provides for public participation, you may not need to expressly provide for it. But then the question is, why then expressly provide for public participation by the Cabinet Secretary? And public participation is required not just by Parliament, it is required by all organs. So because the Constitution does not require it, why would you provide for the Cabinet Secretary and not for Parliament? That's the first problem I have. But the next problem I have is the time constraint. Because Parliament should be left the discretion to do sufficient public participation, when you constrain its time to 60 days, then you might actually be constraining that duty. And that is my problem.
Honorable
So
Amolo,
if you ask, just so that I answer.
Honorable Amolo, you are understood.
Yes.
In fact, you are saying the same thing with the mover, except you are speaking at cross purposes.
Yes, because
the mover is saying...
I'm educating in law.
Yes. The mover is saying, if I understood the mover well, that while least public participation is provided for in Article 10 as a national value, the Constitution specifically mentions it for Parliament, but does not for the executive. And so the mover is saying for the executive, the bill may need to propose it specifically, but for Parliament, according to RIM, the bill does not, because Article 118 already does so.
And
but,
it's wrong.
But that does not take away your power to amend and to make it better.
And here, Mr. Speaker, the mover is wrong, and that's what I'm trying to explain. But I may need a whole day to explain this. My whole point is, to constrain Parliament to 60 days is a constraint on the duty of public participation. And we would do better to remove that time constraint. In very simple parlance, that's what I'm saying. But let me now come to my last point, Mr. Speaker, and this is a little technical, and I would not blame the committee for this, section 53, where we establish an appeals board. Now, the design is good because you start with a review, then appeal to the appeals board, then to the High Court.
You will add, Honorable Amolo, how long do you need? Yeah, I will add you 3 because of my own interventions also.
Thank you. The only technicality, and this is beyond this act, is to advise the committee that as we speak, there's a decision of the High Court, of the Court of Appeal, that moves all these tribunals to the judiciary. And in that context, to establish a tribunal whose appointment is entirely by the President and the Cabinet Secretary is one that might require re-examination. And in fact, as we speak, the legal team in this House, including the Speaker, are grappling to persuade the court that there's room for administrative tribunals and judicial tribunals. But for now, that is the law. And therefore, as framed, Section 53 may be in danger of being unconstitutional. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, we must ask, our order paper number 13, which I think was a supplementary order paper, and the leader and the House business owe us an explanation. When we looked at the order paper this morning, order paper number 13 was not about privatization. And some of us did not come to the House for that reason. When we come, we now find there's a different order paper for approval of a privatization based on a sessional paper, when the very next order is approval of a bill that regulates privatization. What is this thing of legislation by ambush? It is something we must object to, and it is something that must be corrected. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Amolo. Honorable Amolo, the business of the House is determined by the House Business Committee, and there is something called supplementary order paper, so we must always be vigilant about them. Yes. The Honorable Benjamin Langat will now speak.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members. The mover, the leader of majority, take very seriously the last point raised by Honorable Amolo. And by the way, I know some amendments speak to it, Honorable Amolo, in terms of realigning, those provisions. But I think Honorable Amolo also look at the distinction between the privatization proposal and the privatization program in terms of their contents. And then you can make proposals in terms of how to improve. This bill, you both agree, is a good bill. Honorable Benjamin Langat, proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this bill. Mr. Speaker, as has been said, this is not a new bill. It has already been passed in 2023, but the courts annulled it. Mr. Speaker, the reason why it was annulled was because of lack of public participation mainly. And I want to inform the House that we have done very serious public participation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in fact, we went to 25 counties outside Nairobi, Mr. Speaker. So we have corrected the anomaly, and hopefully the bill will go through. Mr. Speaker, this bill seeks to repeal Privatization Law Act of 2005, and it creates a privatization authority to replace Privatization Commission, which, Mr. Speaker, had been affected by a lot of bureaucracy, Mr. Speaker. Imagine for the last 10 years, there has not been any privatization of any company in the Republic, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, hopefully this bill will make the process smooth, will make the process faster, and will make the process safer, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill creates a privatization authority with a board. Number two, Mr. Speaker, it distinguishes the functions of different actors in the process. Privatization authority will do the implementation of the privatization process. The CS, Mr. Speaker, will initiate the process through what we call privatization program, which is basically the list of companies that have been identified for the purposes of privatization, Mr. Speaker. The bill also sets the fact that the CS would take the bill to Cabinet for approval, the program to Cabinet for approval, then it will be brought to Parliament for approval. And Parliament can approve as it is, can amend, or can reject, Mr. Speaker. If Parliament approves with amendments, then the Cabinet Secretary will have to publish a fresh list under the program. Mr. Speaker, the privatization program has been given 8 years for implementation, because again we have seen some of the privatizations which have been done before. They have taken a lot of time. So the bill provides that when we approve the program, it will take 8 years. If some of them have not been privatized, then it will be brought back to Parliament. 3, Mr. Speaker, the privatization authority will then prepare what we call privatization proposal, which then lists the values of companies, individual companies, Mr. Speaker, and all the details for privatization. So, Mr. Speaker, I support the bill.
Marianne Keitany, don't run far from your...
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand to support the bill that is before us on the privatization amendments. And first, Honorable Speaker, I would like to go to Article 10 of the Constitution of Kenya, which talks about the national values and principles of governance. And in particular, it talks about the values and principles that state organs, state officers, and public officers, wherever they are, applies them. And more specifically, Honorable Speaker, I want to talk about good governance, integrity, transparency, accountability, and sustainable development. I think that part of sustainable development is very critical. And when you look at most of these institutions that are being privatized, they actually exist to do business and to make money. And if you see the role of government is to give people sustainable development, good governance, give them human dignity, you give them equity, social justice, and where a business exists to make money or to do business, then, and it is competing with the need for our government to provide services just for development, sustainable development, then you find that both of these will go in conflict. A case in point, for example, is KenGen, for example. KenGen provides a strategic resource, which is the provision of electricity in the value chain of electricity. And before it was privatized, for example, you find that a lot of government procedures, for example, procurement procedures, recruitment procedures, and all those procedures, which in essence exist because there needs to be equity when government is providing services, go and interfere with the value or the processes within which these companies or a company like that was there to do, which was to make money or to do business. And therefore, I would support the privatization arrangement where most of these strategic assets that exist for the purposes of doing business and giving services to the common mwananchi at the same time are able to thrive in an environment that is private, that is able to compete with other businesses. And I take note, especially Section 21 of the proposed bill, which talks about, without prejudice to the generalities of the subsection, it talks about identification and determination of these entities for privatization, where we take into consideration Part C of it, the strategic nature of the public entity to be privatized. I think that is very important because many of the businesses that government do are because they are strategic in nature. But however strategic in nature they are, I think we need to balance the issue of strategic nature in it and the business that it is going to provide. The case in point is the privatization of Kenya Pipeline, like we just concluded, or the one that we just talked about. And you realize that whereas Kenya Pipeline gives a strategic business, which is to transport oil or fuel that we use, that is a much needed commodity, it is a service that it is not monopolistic in nature because after the transportation, the actual marketing and selling are done by private sector. So by privatizing that particular company, you will not have created a monopolistic nature which actually gets a country to be stuck in the process, because you find that even the same oil can also be transported by road, and it is currently done even by private entities or private companies which can compete with a pipeline. So therefore, the strategic nature of the public entity to be privatized, I like that it has been put in the bill, because that is one of the considerations that the minister or the cabinet secretary will consider while looking at what items or what entities to be privatized. And I would love a situation where most of government entities, especially where they do a business, to actually get out of being regulated and managed by government, because then the business nature of it is not considered. Because many times we would love to look at what Article 10 provides vis-a-vis what the business entails, and many a times the government would prioritize what Article 10 provides in the Constitution at the expense of business. And that is the reason why you find many businesses that are government-owned and government-run, when they compete with the private sector, you find that they don't make profits, they don't succeed, whereas the private sector businesses are succeeding because they are there to make business. An example, again, I want to give is the Portland Cement, which is partly government, partly private. It is competing in the sector with other private entities, and you find those private entities reporting very huge profits as compared to the publicly or government or entities that have government stake in it, because of the procedures that they are put forth, that they are told they must procure using certain procedures, they must hire using certain procedures, at the expense of actually looking for the right value or the right personnel that they would have required to do the business. The other thing under this same act is the need to reduce budget drain on government resources. You find many of these entities, some of them are run down to a point where the exchequer, Wanjiko's money has to come in through and through to come and support these entities, which would have otherwise stood on their own and run the businesses on their own. And why is because, again, of those procedural issues that come with running a government entity. So I would want to support the act, the privatization bill that is before us, and say that once this is done and it is an act of parliament, I think many other institutions that are profitable in nature, even today, be considered for privatization, because privatizing a profitable entity helps government get better value for what it is that it is privatizing, as opposed to privatizing an entity that is struggling, that is not moving anywhere. I'd want to give a last example of Rivertex. Rivertex is a company that was started off as a private company. At some point, it went down, it collapsed, and later it was revived by government. And even now, after revival by government, it is struggling. It is barely opening its doors because of the many issues that have been brought because of being a government state-owned company. If that company was privatized and it was running as a private entity to make clothing, because that, if you look at what they are doing, much as it is strategic, it is not very strategic enough to say that you really need it as a private or as a public entity. So if it was running as a private entity competing with other cloth manufacturers, I think today it would be employing more people, opening its doors, doing a lot of business, and having the Eldoret city very vibrant because of its nature of the activities that it would be doing. But as we speak today, there is little or no activity in that company because of all these issues that we have brought through the public, through it being a public entity, and that has really clogged it down to a point where it is at near collapse at the moment as we speak. So I want to support this bill and say that this bill has come at a timely time, because many of the entities that government runs, or many public entities that government run, ideally really should be entities that should be privately run, competing with other private entities, giving the best service to the people of Kenya. Because again, when we have a public entity which does not have any competition, you find that you will get it, either you get that service or no service. But when there is many companies competing, doing the same business, you get the best out of those, because you have a choice as a Kenyan as to which service or which goods to go for, because they will have competitively been procured and competitively been serviced. And further to that is that all these companies are regulated in various acts of parliament, which then takes care of the consumer, it takes care of the Kenyan public, whether they are operating in public or whether they are operating as a private entity, because they will have to conform to acts and legislations that exist in this country. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I support.
Let us be fair to the Honorable Joseph Oyula. And Honorable Joseph Oyula will be followed by the MP for Tetu. And the MP for Tetu will be followed by the Honorable Dr. John Makali Mulu. David. No, you are Dr. Makali Mulu. Yes. Yes, so give them the mic in that order.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also contribute to this important bill. Honorable Speaker, privatization has been with us for some time. It's only that it lacked proper legal position in the country. We had some companies privatized, government companies like KCB and so forth, which were privatized and have done very well. So this bill enables the public also to participate fully in the running of the organizations. It will therefore help the country in ensuring that government does not participate in private enterprises, but lets it out to the public also to participate. The bill, Honorable Speaker, establishes authority indicating the functions, operations, and sets governance standards, which is very important for the organization to be run properly. The bill brings out legal methods, including public offerings, shows eligibility criteria for investors. Of course, the investors must be able to measure certain standards so that the organization can be run well. Honorable Speaker, privatization alters ownership of assets built through taxpayers' money. The taxpayers' money have been used in building the organization. Now, when we do the privatization, we alter the ownership. We ensure that government takes little control of the running of the organization. Privatization, Honorable Speaker, enables the government, the running of the organizations that have been hit hard by decision making to be able to decide upon well so that the business can be done without much problems. The bill is not just about selling assets, Honorable Speaker. The bill is about redefining the relationship between government, citizens, and the economy. If the organization can be more economical under a different hand, Honorable Speaker, then it will create more, it will raise more revenue for the public. The privatization, therefore, ensures that organizations that can be run independently from government participation are properly organized. Honorable Speaker, we have seen what privatization has done in the past. Like the organizations I've mentioned, they used not to be well run. But after the privatization exercise, Honorable Speaker, you can see KCB is now a large organization. Although in some areas privatization also did not help much. Like, say, Mumias Sugar Company, which was privatized through IPO, but later on lost control and started making losses. But all in all, Honorable Speaker, privatization will enable the country to raise more revenue because of the good management that is expected from the running of the company. Mr. Speaker, privatization bill should be supported. It's opening up for other organizations that the government should not continue handling to be privatized. With this legal position, Honorable Speaker, we think that the government can now move out of running business instead of running the other services that are required. So with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support.
The Honorable Geoffrey Mwangi, the MP for Tetu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I support privatization, but I don't support this bill because it has a number of deficiencies that needs to be addressed before it can be passed by this House. Mr. Speaker, many speakers before me have alluded to some of them, and I do not wish to repeat. But the first thing, Mr. Speaker, is that in the bill, it is not very clear how the organizations to be picked for privatization will be picked. The bill is also not specific on the method of privatization that will be applied to each of the entities in a privatization program. The bill obviously envisages 3 methods of privatization, But it is very clear that as we bring to this house and says we want to privatize organization X, the privatization authority, the cabinet secretary should have communicated to this house clearly which method will be adopted. Because, Mr. Speaker, we have to prevent against ambush, where we come as a house and say we are okay to privatize organization X. Then tomorrow morning, it is handed over to Adani through some sort of sale by tender or through some sort of private arrangement. So that is one, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the second one is that if you look at Section 21 of this bill, and especially subsection 2, Part C and Part D, there are very good provisions that have been provided there as to the reasons or the considerations that the cabinet secretary should take to allow an organization to be privatized. But, Mr. Speaker, if we were to apply those rules, even regarding the privatization that we have just passed, or the session of paper that we have just passed for Kenya Pipeline, that session of paper would fall on its belly. The reason being, the Act here says that the Cabinet Secretary shall consider the strategic nature of the public entity to be privatized and the need to avoid a privatization that may result into an unregulated monopoly. What we have just passed this afternoon for KPC is just exactly these two issues. We have given away a strategic asset, and Mr. Speaker, it is not fair to sell the family silver to settle grocery bills. We understand the urgency to pay these pending bills. Now, just to provide family with dinner, that is not very clever. So, Mr. Speaker, the other thing is that we may end up with an unregulated monopoly. Because as much as we are saying that the government and the KPC will have 35%, we don't know whether the rest of the 65% over time is going to be accumulated by some wealthy foreign investor who will just but have full control, of this organization. Mr. Speaker, I also note Section 29, and this has been raised by Honorable Otiende Omoro, that the privatization authority has been given a whole 8 years to finalize a privatization. But Parliament has only been given 60 days. So again, I would like just there to buttress the importance of, adding more time. Under Section 31, 32, Mr. Speaker, I see some inconsistencies between the words privatization program, which I believe is a list of organizations that are due for privatization, and the word privatization, which I believe here talks about a specific privatization of an entity. So again, Mr. Speaker, we need to be, there's inconsistency in the words used, in Part 4. So we either remove the word program so that the Cabinet Secretary presents to this House privatization, not a program, a specific organization for which he has determined is due for privatization, and he can bring many of them in a batch. He can bring this organization and this organization and bring all of them in a batch, for consideration, by Parliament. Mr. Speaker, if you look at, for example, just what we have passed here this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to talk a little bit about Kenya Pipeline, because I really wanted an opportunity to speak about this, and I'm not trying to go back to debate, but obviously the bill was very hurriedly passed, and I believe at the behest of some other voice that came from somewhere where debate was curtailed unnecessarily. But, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the issue of Kenya Pipeline being a strategic asset, being a security asset, why are we rushing? We have so many dry cows, Mr. Speaker, if I may call them that, like Kenya Pyrethrum Board, people like Rivertex, who, Mr. Speaker, we can prioritize in privatization. Kenya Pipeline still pays a dividend. Kenya Pipeline is a strategic national asset. If today the Turkish investors or any other foreign investors who may buy this organization decide to deny the whole country fuel, Mr. Speaker, what are we going to do? So it is very, very important, Mr. Speaker, that as we go into this IPO, we are very careful. Also, Mr. Speaker, in a lot of these IPOs, if you look at the status of the country, people have no money. Kenyans are struggling to put food on the table. Who is going to participate, Mr. Speaker? It is going to be foreigners, and basically all we are doing is to give our strategic national assets, to foreigners. So, Mr. Speaker, what about the guarantee that the employees of these organizations, because again, if you look at all these bills, these items are silent. Will they be guaranteed of their security? So I see this whole Kenya pipeline session of paper and this again privatization bill just as another poor bidding by this House for the executive to pass the laws that will end up not being in the strategic interest and good of this country. So, Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, I support privatization, but I oppose this poorly scripted bill. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Dr. Makali Mulu. And let me apologize, I confused you with John Makali, Honorable John Makali. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, you are not the first one to do it. At some point, I've actually suffered because of the two names. We have Johnny Makali and we have Makali Mulu. And I remember when we were doing the finance bill, there was that confusion that Makali Mulu had voted yes for the finance bill. Basically because they saw the name Makali, they never bothered to check the second name. But there's no problem, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me also thank you for this opportunity as I make my contribution to this important bill. Honorable Speaker, this bill is very important, and from where I sit, this bill should actually be passed by this House many, many years ago. Why am I saying so? Honorable Speaker, this House and this country has passed many laws which allowed creation of some of these parastatals. And Honorable Speaker, if you look at the number of parastatals we have in this country, they are actually very many. And basically, you'd have three categories of parastatals. We'll have some which are commercial in nature, and the expectation is they should be generating money for the government so that they create wealth for this country, they increase our revenue collection, and all what comes with the wealth creation, Honorable Speaker. The second category is what I would call social parastatals, ones which serve social interests. Things like NHIF, things like NSSF, parastatals which you don't expect them to make any money, but are good for ensuring that socially they benefit Kenyans. And then the third category, Honorable Speaker, are what we call strategic parastatals. Parastatals which are there to serve the nation. They may not be making money for the country, but at the same time they are not serving social interests, Honorable Speaker. These are parastatals like what we have been saying always about Kenya Airways, where even though it is loss-making, but we continue supporting it as a country. And I would also categorize Kenya Pipeline into that, Honorable Speaker. Parastatals which are critical for the country, and more so for the security of the country, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, looking at this bill, and without repeating what my colleagues have said, there are some clauses in this bill which are quite critical. And one of them is the clause of public participation, Honorable Speaker. And I wanted to revisit the issue of public participation, and more so the one which is going to be initiated by Parliament, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, Kenyans would expect Parliament to be very effective in carrying out public participation. And this is basically, Honorable Speaker, because this is the only assembly which represents Kenya, all corners of this country. And the expectation is that as a House, whatever we pass here should be for public interest, Honorable Speaker. So the issues raised by Omoro Atieno and Honorable Member Voteto, Honorable Speaker, are issues which you need to revisit. And when we go to the third reading of this bill, we must make sure that we get them right. The second important issue, Honorable Speaker, is the issue of the principle of transparency and accountability in this bill, Honorable Speaker. this issue has really been discussed in this. And this is very important. This principle of transparency and accountability is very important, Honorable Speaker. Why am I saying so, Honorable Speaker? Because in the past, we have seen parastatals which have been privatized, but the people who benefit are the people who are buying the parastatals, and the public does not benefit in any way, because some of them have been given out or been sold out, Honorable Speaker, at very low prices, to an extent that even the investment cost is never recovered, Honorable Speaker. So I think, Honorable Speaker, this is a matter as a House. We must ensure that this principle of transparency, Honorable Speaker, we need to entrench that part so that whatever we are going to be in future to be privatizing, Honorable Speaker, we must ensure that it's done in an open way for the Kenyans to benefit. The third matter, Honorable Speaker, is this bill also becomes very important because of the duplication issues. Honorable Speaker, most of these parastatals have what I will call duplication laws. Laws have been duplicated, Honorable Speaker. And what is happening is we could achieve the same outcomes by either merging them or selling them off so that we get money to support our revenue as a country, but still achieve the same outcomes. So the fact that now we are getting this serious, Honorable Speaker, means that it would be easy to identify these parasites which are actually duplicating roles so that we either merge them. In that case, we'll be saving in terms of administrative cost, in terms of current cost, but at the end of the day, we'll be able to achieve the same role. The other issue, Honorable Speaker, which is critical, and now this is where I want to revisit. When you look at this bill, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Speaker, I really need to beg that you listen to what I'll be saying after you go through the Mr. Mutunga, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, because this is a matter of
Honorable Makali, what is out of order, Honorable Jerusha Mumanyi?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand on a point of order 95 in view of what was communicated by the Speaker, that we have an adjournment motion at exactly 6, if the mover can be called to reply.
Just take back your seat. Honorable Makali Mulu, by way of practice, will conclude first. Then I'll remit your request to the House for decision. Honorable Makali Mulu, proceed.
Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, now it's unfortunate. The honorable members interfered with my flow of thoughts, but let me revisit. Now, what I was saying, Honorable Speaker, is I was saying, Honorable Speaker, and I really want the majority leader to listen to this. Honorable Speaker, we are discussing the privatization bill now. Just about 2 hours ago, we passed the privatization of the Kenya pipeline. The session of paper. How I wish we had done it the other way around. How I wish we had done it the other way around. Why am I saying that, Honorable Speaker? I'm saying this because, Honorable Speaker, when you look at this bill, it adds a lot of value to the process of privatization of public entities. And if it adds value to that process, Honorable Speaker, the country would have gained more by ensuring that we have this as a law, this bill is an act of parliament, and then we subject this process to this act. I'm telling you, Kenyans will have benefited much. But now what has happened, Honorable Speaker, and this is what I was saying, because this is the work of the House business, Honorable Speaker. And I've sat in the House business for the last 10 years. I know subliminally order papers are allowed, but Honorable Speaker, as a ranking member in this House, I would have expected such a grave matter as selling Kenya Pipeline to have been taken through a process which does not leave any doubt to Kenyans that there are any undercurrents in the process. We might not want to say it here, but Honorable Speaker, I thought I need to say that with all due respect to the process, that this thing called Kenya Pipeline, Honorable Speaker, I want to give you an example. Our people in Makueni, because of the spillover, we have a serious matter in one of the Makueni areas where our people lost life, where our people continue to suffer serious diseases as a result of that. And as we are talking, Honorable Speaker, that matter was never resolved. So leaders from my region would have expected a situation whereby, even before we conclude that process, Honorable Speaker, that matter will have been discussed to the end, Honorable Speaker. And in that case, Honorable Speaker,
Honorable Makali,
we will not disadvantage any Kenyan.
Honorable Makali, you may be right, but Parliament has made a decision on the matter.
I've seen it in the...
And that decision could be because of several, among others, that issue you are talking about. Yes, so I want to discourage us from, seeking to review a decision.
No, I know the decision has been made, Honorable Speaker.
By Parliament properly.
Honorable Speaker, I'm a ranking member just as you are, but I know what we say goes to record. I know that motion was passed by the House. It is history. But the good thing is I have a chance now to talk about, I'm talking on this matter as part of my contribution to the privatization bill, which actually touches on this matter.
Honorable Makali Mulu, you have done very well.
But Honorable Speaker, as I conclude.
The point I'm making, Honorable Makali,
yes,
is that it is wrong for members of Parliament to cast aspersions on the procedures Parliament is using to transact its business. This is not the first time the matter of privatization of that subject matter came before the floor. You remember even before recess, it was on the floor.
By the way, I remember...
And you know, Honorable Makali, that the House Business Committee, I don't know whether it is in the standing orders, but by practice meets around noon. So let us not, as members, be here to cast aspersions on matters Parliament has decided on.
Anyway, Honorable Speaker, what I'm saying, and I want to repeat again.
Yeah, conclude.
I want to repeat again, Honorable Speaker. I've been a member of the House Business for 10 years. I'm not casting any aspersion, Honorable Speaker, to this committee, but what I'm saying, Honorable Speaker, as a country and as a House, Honorable Speaker, is the public knowledge that our trust out there as a House has gone very low.
So your time is up, Honorable No, Honorable Makali Mulu, you've not requested for time. If you did, I would have made a decision on it. Yeah, honorable members. Yes. Honorable members, the Honorable Jerusha Momanyi, standing at her place, moved that the mover be called to reply. I now put the question under standing order number 95, that the mover be called to reply. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? Nay. Yes, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. So mover will reply.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you because...
Order, honorable members.
Honorable Speaker,
Honorable Kajuang, Honorable Nyikal, just order. You remember I asked the question and paused to listen very carefully.
Yes.
I had two members, they were very loud, but really there were more. There were more members in terms of the ayes.
Honorable Speaker, on a light note also,
yeah.
10 voices cannot compete with the Honorable TJ Kajwang's voice alone. And democracy is about numbers. Therefore, the ayes had it because there were more people saying ayes than Honorable Kajwang and Dr. Nyikal. But Honorable Speaker, allow me to take this opportunity to thank all the members who've contributed and just reply to some of the salient issues that have been raised, beginning with what Honorable Makali Mulu was raising, on the need to have other privatization, modes of privatization or other ways of enhancing the efficiency of government or state-owned corporations. And indeed, it is true, and Honorable Makali Mulu has sat in the Budget and Appropriations Committee. He was indeed my member in the Budget and Appropriations Committee. And many of the things that we dotted together as members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee that government needs to do is the issues that we are speaking to today, privatization, through either IPOs or getting strategic investments, merging state corporations, and indeed I want to confirm to Honorable Makali Mulu, as he was saying, that there is also the drive and the move to merge some of our state-owned enterprises, those that duplicate functions, to enhance efficiency and save on public resources, and therefore, in direct answer to what an issue that Honorable Makali Mulu has raised, I can confirm that. On the other pertinent issue, Honorable Speaker, that has been raised on public participation, especially on the contributions by Honorable Otiende Amolo. And Honorable Speaker, you did very well in articulating what is already provided for in the Constitution. And Honorable Molo was posing the question as to why are we specifically providing under this statute for the Cabinet Secretary in the National Treasury to carry out public participation. And indeed, in your guidance, you offered that answer, that the Constitution provides explicitly for public participation in legislative processes, and therefore we do not need to duplicate what is already provided for under the Constitution, but does not provide for mandatory public participation by the executive. And that is why under this bill, we are saying when it becomes an act of parliament, it will now be mandatory for the executive to carry out public participation. And I did say when I was moving that this bill seeks to address many of the issues that were raised by the court on issues to do with public participation, inclusivity, and I did state in moving that we are making sure that even stakeholders, all stakeholders involved in this process of privatization are involved in that process, and therefore the straight answer to Honorable Otiende Amolo on why we are explicitly providing for the executive to carry out public participation is to make sure that there is no lacuna in terms of ensuring there is inclusivity, that also we involve all the stakeholders, and therefore the executive is obligated to make sure that even before they bring that privatization program and process to Parliament, they have done their own public participation. Parliament, as is provided for by the Constitution, will, as a matter of constitutional obligations, carry out public participation. Does the 60 days the Honorable Otiende Amolo was speaking to constrain Parliament in terms of public participation? It does not. Because by tradition and even practice, ordinarily we do our public participation within 7 days, 7 to 14 days. I think the longest public participation that I have seen over the last 3 terms of Parliament that have been in this House is one that went on for about 28 days. But normally within 7 days, Parliament is able to conduct public participation, even on critical bills like the finance bill, where they go out of the country. They do it, even the Budget and Appropriations Committee, which Makali Mulu sits in. Within 7 to 10 days, they have finished public participation, even outside where Parliament sits in Nairobi, in the counties. And therefore, the 60 days that are being provided for approval of this process by Parliament does not in any way constrain public participation, since we can do public participation. On the issue of tribunals under Section 53, Honorable Speaker, that you alluded to also yourself, as Honorable Otiende Amolo was contributing, it is true there is already a tribunals bill which is already under publication. And very soon
Majority Leader, there is an adjournment motion which was allowed.
Yes, let me conclude with
so
that.
The House was to adjourn at exactly 6 to go into that motion.
Sorry, I forgot to look at the time, Honorable Speaker.
How long will you...
2 minutes and I'm done.
Yes.
I was actually concluding on Section 53 on tribunals, saying that the publication of the tribunals bill is underway, and it will create a distinction between the quasi-judicial tribunals and the administrative tribunals, and this is such one tribunal that is not quasi-judicial, that will not need to go to the judiciary, is a more administrative tribunal that can be done under the executive, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, with those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I need not reply to the political issues that were being raised by some members. Honorable Wandeto spoke a lot on political issues that are not important in such an important matter as privatization, and therefore I beg to ignore those political issues. They can be dealt with in other forums, like in funerals and weddings, not on the floor of Parliament, and therefore ignore those, and I therefore beg to reply. This is a very progressive bill, and it will offer us an opportunity to do what is right, what is good for the people of Kenya, to be able to raise revenues through other alternative means of raising revenue other than taxing Kenyans or going out to borrow. It's shocking, Honorable Speaker, that the people who shout out there that, oh, you should not borrow, you should not overtax Kenyans, today are the same people who say they oppose privatization. And that tells you, Honorable Speaker, the fallacy of politics. And that's why I chose to ignore the Honorable Wandeto and others who are on political issues. I beg to reply.
Honorable members, I've confirmed the House has quorum to transact business. And I therefore proceed to put the question that the privatization bill order Yes, so I put the question that the privatization bill, National Assembly Bill number 36 of 2025, be now read a second time. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The ayes have it. Next order. Next order.
A bill for an act of parliament to provide a regulatory framework for the privatization of public
Next
entities,
order.
to establish the privatization authority and for connected purposes.
Honorable Kajuang, sit down. I make necessary consultations. Just sit. No, just sit. Honorable members, take your seats. Take your seats. Are any members calling for division? Yeah, so just a minute, I consult. Just come. Honorable Kajuang, kindly approach the speaker. Sit down. Take your seat, Honorable Mawade. Take your seat. You see. Yeah, so Honorable Undo, take your seats, honorable members. Honorable Mawade, it is a disorderly conduct to raise a point of order incessantly. Yes, I want the next order called. It is the adjournment motion we are going to. Who is moving the adjournment motion? Yeah, the Honorable Naisula proceed. Honorable Mawade, approach the speaker in the meantime. Would you give Honorable Naisula Lesuda the mic?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 33-1, I seek leave for the adjournment of the House for purposes of discussing a definite matter of urgent national importance regarding the alarming rise in cases of femicide and gender-based violence in the country. Honorable Speaker, in the recent months, there has been a disturbing surge in brutal killings and abuse of women and children. This worrying trend has been evidenced by several horrific incidents across the country. For example, in September 2025, a young woman in Narok County was abducted and assaulted by her relatives for allegedly going against the wishes of the family in relation to her choice of marriage
Honorable
partner.
members, the adjournment motion raises a very serious issue. Would I request that those who are consulting do so in lower tones?
Similarly, in July 2025, a 16-year-old secondary school student in Kakamega County was defiled by her teacher, highlighting the vulnerability of children within learning institutions. Alarmingly, cases of children being killed by close relatives have also been reported in the recent past. For instance, an 11-year-old child from Bomet County was killed by his father following a domestic disagreement, while in Tana River, 4 children were allegedly buried alive by their father as a form of punishment. Honorable Speaker, despite widespread advocacy against these heinous acts, the justice system, including the judiciary, the National Police Service, and the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, has failed in protecting victims and ensuring accountability. Specifically, there have been reports on mishandling of evidence on victims of gender-based violence, which has contributed to a culture of impunity where perpetrators act without fear of repercussions. There is therefore need for concerted efforts by all stakeholders, including the relevant government agencies, non-government organizations, and the civil society in supporting victims and raise awareness. Additionally, there is need to safeguard the right to education for children endangered by child marriages, which is a violation of human rights. Regrettably, the Directorate of Children's Services is yet to be established to establish offices in all constituencies, resulting in delays in monitoring incidences and safeguarding children from all forms of exploitation. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek leave for the adjournment of the House to discuss this matter of great national concern with a view to exploring possible lasting solutions. I thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to first thank the Speaker for accepting this House to adjourn to discuss this national matter. And Mr. Speaker, I would even want to say that femicide and gender-based violence, at the rate that it is going on, it should be declared a national disaster, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we cannot be a country that sees its children, and you know it has been said that if you want to know how a country is or how leaders are, and leaders, it means everybody, because I'll explain who needs to be on the table on this matter, Mr. Speaker. It is how it treats its most vulnerable people, Mr. Speaker. And for me, children, women, they are very, very vulnerable in our society, Mr. Speaker. And how we treat this matter, Mr. Speaker, just like the gentlemen who are standing, consulting in loud voices in this House, Mr. Speaker, how they are taking this matter, Mr. Speaker, just tells you how serious this matter is being taken in this House, Mr. Speaker. And I would like you to protect me from the gentlemen here who are consulting in loud tones, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I need your protection. I need the members to consult in low voices or they go out.
Order, members. These ranking members, order. We want to see and hear.
And it is a speaker
the
doing that.
member in total silence on these important matters.
Yeah.
Thank you, honorable members, for dispersing. You may continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for your protection. It's okay. So, Mr. Speaker, as I was saying, as a nation, how are we treating our children? How are we treating our women, Mr. Speaker? And that doesn't also mean that there are no boys or men who are actually facing gender-based violence. Just as I said, the child who was killed in Bomet was actually a boy. And so this is why, and that is why it's also called gender. It is not just called female or women, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, because I know I only have probably 5 minutes, since it's an adjournment motion, I want to give the way forward. Because I cannot overemphasize what is going on in the country. In my own constituency, Mr. Speaker, 2 days ago, a father killed 2 of his children and stabbed the wife. Right now, I'm dealing with a child who was raped by a doctor, a person who children go to and women go to. We have a case in my court of a doctor sedating children and raping them. Mr. Speaker, I am in a group called KEWOPA, Kenya Women KEWOPA Parliamentary Association. Every day, the women in this house share horrific stories of what is happening in their counties and constituencies, Mr. Speaker. And that is why I'm also pushing that in this parliament, we need to have social, psychological support, and especially of the women who sit in this house, Mr. Speaker. Because it is the women in this house who every day have to deal with such matters. I see it, I feel them, I see what they are going through in their constituencies, Mr. Speaker. And that leads me to a point, Mr. Speaker, I urge on my male colleagues that maybe the fact that every time there is an issue of femicide and gender-based violence, even in the country, the first question that everybody asks is, where are the women leaders? What are the women leaders doing? This is a national issue for all of us. My male colleagues, I call upon you. Please speak up. Please stand up for the women and even the boys who are being molested, who are being killed, and even the girls. Because you're the leaders, even of our families. Your voices will be heard. Because maybe people are also tired of the women crying every day and the women talking. And so I urge my male colleagues to also stand up to be counted. The girls, the women, Mr. Speaker, for a long time, we've been pushing issues of early marriages, issues of FGM, and it is the women of this country who have been doing it. In civil society, in parliament, in the church, in schools, it is the women who have been doing it, Mr. Speaker. And that is why in some places we have made progress. That is why in a constituency like mine, they can now elect a girl or a woman. We have made progress. Now, we are being told the girls have gone ahead. Oh, you women, why are you forgetting the boys? So, you men, uncles, fathers, also come and talk to the boys. Because there are things I will not know how to talk to the boys about. I don't know about wet dreams. I don't know about I don't know. But I know about menstruation. I can talk to my girls about it. I know a number of things. Please stand up and also talk to our boys. Be strong father figures. And let us raise our children collectively as it was in the past. We've become so individualistic and capitalistic as a country that everybody just thinks about themselves, their families in nuclear. And I can see already my time is about to end. So I'll now say what I think needs to be done, because a lot has to be done. It has to start at the family level, that the family has to stop protecting perpetrators of gender-based violence and femicide. It has to start at the police stations. When these children come to report, one of my police officers asked the mother of a child who came to report, Mr. Speaker, please give me just 3 minutes. Because I'm giving the
member, you really need to summarize.
I'm summarizing the way forward.
Order, Honourable Member.
Thank you.
This is your own motion. And remember, you are supported overwhelmingly and members are here to support you. Proceed.
Thank you. The policeman and a woman laughed at that girl and told her, how is that a child? She looks over 18.
Very well. Okay, let's give you 1 minute. Remember, it's your own motion. Members want to speak on it.
So quickly, police. Quickly, ODPP. Quickly, judiciary. Consequences. There has to be penalties, serious ones. And by the way, also I realized we have a register of offenders who have been jailed. Please put it public. Let everybody know who are these offenders, so that we know them, so that my girls cannot date people who are rapists, who are defilers. And so the justice system has to work in this country. It doesn't matter how many advocacy meetings we will have, how many times we will talk in this house. There has to be consequences for killing, for raping. There has to be very serious consequences. And if the ODPP, if the police, if a judicial officer messes again with any case or interferes, they will know that as a people we are angry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Martha Wangari.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, being an adjournment motion, I know the standing orders give us 5 minutes, so I'll try to be brief. One is to congratulate Honorable Naisula Lesuda for this motion. Mr. Speaker, if you looked at the numbers that stood up to support this motion and you compare with the numbers now, you'll see that sometimes we don't walk the talk, Mr. Speaker, because this is a matter that is actually hurting our country. Mr. Speaker, there is no pain. We have 5 minutes. Please don't take my time. So kindly, the microphone. So, Mr. Speaker, this issue, we cannot even say it's a matter of legal framework, because the Constitution itself, Constitution 2010, speaks about the rights that are enjoyed by every human being, including children, Mr. Speaker. In fact, there's a whole chapter, Article 43, that talks about the rights of children. And we also have the rights, non-discrimination, the principles that we apply in governance. The Constitution is very elaborate about it. Mr. Speaker, we have very many laws that actually speak to this issue. The Sexual Offences Act, 2006, the Prohibition of FGM Act, 2011, the Children Act, 2016, the Victim Protection Act. Mr. Speaker, we don't have a shortage of law or legal framework, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, what we are seeing more and more daring and glaring sexual offenses against children. We are seeing physical attacks on women and on children. And, Mr. Speaker, the data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics is very damning, because 40% of women aged 15 to 49 have experienced some sort of physical violence since age 15. Mr. Speaker, this abuse is not just physical. It's not about hitting. It is not about killing. It is about sexual violence. It is about emotional violence. It is about economic violence. It is about harmful practices, including FGM. It is also, Mr. Speaker, including online GBV, which includes cyber stalking, harassment, and non-consensual sharing of intimate images and videos. Mr. Speaker, even us as women here in this house, Mr. Speaker, I know so many that have gone through it. Blackmail through a partner who has been intimate with you. Mr. Speaker, if we can have women today being paraded in political rallies, like turn around, let us see you behind. Mr. Speaker, in 2025, it is unfortunate, and this is a form of sexual harassment. Mr. Speaker, I want to pick one case, and I know every member in this country has a story on